a moment to quickly share this on my other pages. And if you would like to if you have any friends, family, etc., that you'd like to invite to join in, you can feel free to do so at this time. Tag them in the post, whatever it is. And we will get started here in about a minute. And that depends on how long and fast this loads up. Where's the live video? Why isn't it popping up here? Is this on? Huh. Let me try to restart this. Let's see. Live. Okay. A little technical difficulty here. Let's see if this works. There's an arrow playing your live video to newsfeed. Check your connection camera. Oh, shit. Well, let's try this again. Give me 1 minute here. Seems like we're having some technical difficulties. I don't know what's doing this. Okay. This seems to be working now. Let's see. Okay, I think we're back in business. Let's see if anybody logs in. All right, everybody. I know I'm sitting here kind of mumbling to myself, but we were having some technical issues, and it didn't look like it was broadcasting. And then it started broadcast, and it said that it is interrupted. But now it looks like we're working, and I see some emojis going, so that's fantastic. All right, I'm gonna quickly share this to the other pages, and if you have some you'd like to join us, feel free to do so. And then we'll get started here in about a minute and 38 seconds. I apologize for technical difficulties. It was saying that it looked like it was broadcasting, and then it wasn't showing anything, and then it said that it wasn't broadcasting, but I think we have the situation rectified now, if I could talk. So I just have 3 more quick shares to do, and then we'll be ready to rock and roll. So while I do that, why don't you say hello and I don't know. What's your favorite exercise to do? Say hello, and what is your favorite exercise to do? That might be a good question. I have 2 more shares, and then I'll be back over when we're ready to go. So hello, and what is your favorite exercise to do? And I think this is my last one. Why does it keep doing it? Oh, oops. Don't want to be pushing buttons now at this point. Okay, I think we have everything dialed in here. So let's see who's online. Lisa, what's up, Lisa? Hey, Violet, Stacy. Hello, Stacy. You have a public service announcement. What's your public service announcement, Linda? Can hear you loud and clear. Awesome. Heather, what's up, Heather? Good to see you on here. Tricep dips. Oh, I love tricep dips. Hey, Gail, good to see you on here. Lisa, what's up, Lisa? Lisa enjoys walking. You know what's funny is I have fallen in love with walking these last few years, and I never thought I would be that person who enjoyed walking so much. But I really, really do. And I find that I can just experience and appreciate things in such a different way than otherwise. So I've really gotten to be a fan of walking. Just so people know, don't hit the emoji button too often. You go to Facebook jail. You can like or share anything until they let you out of jail. Oh, no. You know, isn't that funny is they put you in Facebook jail for doing what they say they want you to do, because they put these features on here of liking and whatnot so that you can interact and engage, and they want you to engage and interact more, but then they put you in Facebook jail for it. It's like the big hypocrisy of, or whatever the conundrum of it. Stacy, walking nature, hand bike. Oh, hand bikes are fun. Mike, what's up, Mike? Hey, Michael, good to see you on here. Your first watch party. There could definitely be cake. Welcome back. How was your meditation? How was your meditation retreat? Good to see you on here. Okay, a couple quick updates before we dive in today. First of all, was yesterday helpful? Is there any questions at all about yesterday's live? Was it helpful? Everything makes sense? Any follow-up questions? Anything that needs to be cleared up? And as a reminder to stay up to date, we'll do that later. I think that's the big thing. I think since we're a little bit behind with the technical difficulties, we'll save it. But the big reminders are we'll go to the end with that. And let's go ahead and we'll dive into today, right? And then we'll save reminders for the end. So I don't see anybody asking any follow-up questions about yesterday, which is going to lead us to today. And today we're going to focus on, if I could get my little thing to pop up here, the 5 dirty secrets that keep people from having a deep level of self-love. So this is going to be our second part of our self-love series that we're doing this week. The 5 dirty secrets that keep people from having a deep level of self-love. I'm just trying to get my little notes here to pop up. The reason that we're doing self-love is because it is the season, right, where love seems to be in the air, and there's a lot of talk about love. There's a holiday, I think, on Thursday that has a lot of emphasis and oomph placed on it, and it being some sort of symbol of love. And as you recall, we talked about yesterday, we really started to dive into self-love and why self-love is the most important kind of love. We got into the concept of you project what you reflect, meaning that if we see in the mirror, if we don't have a loving image that's looking back at us, it's going to be hard for us to genuinely project love, because what's going to be happening is our love is going to be so based on condition, right? We're going to give love out externally to try to help get it to help us fill the void internally, which is why we want to really focus in and do the deep dive on self-love this week. Now, the 5 dirty secrets that keep people from having a deep level of self-love, or these are only 5, not all, but these are 5 key ones that I find time and time again with my work with people from all over the world and what they struggle with self-love. So what I encourage you to do is, if you've never been here before, take some notes, and we'll have a little bit of time at the end for questions. If you have comments, you can go ahead and distribute them throughout. We'll have some time to circle back through and answer questions, answer comments. I encourage you to support one another. If you see someone asking a question, you see someone opening up, sharing, applaud them for doing so, because it takes a lot of courage to do that. And it's often in the sharing of others and the questions of others that we all can get the most growth out of it. So the first big one about this that keep people from having a deep level of self-love is that there is a belief that somebody can't change. There's a belief that they can't change. So let's examine that, especially from the context of Valentine's Day. I don't know about any of you, but when I used to have this dialogue in my head on Valentine's Day. And if I wasn't in a relationship, the dialogue went something like this. Here it is, Valentine's Day, the day where all the couples go and celebrate their love from one another. And because I don't have a sweetie, I don't have somebody who I can celebrate their love with, that means that I'm unlovable. And that means that I'm not dateable. Which means if I'm not lovable and I'm not dateable at this Valentine's Day, it means that I will never be lovable and I'll never be dateable, and I'm going to be stuck and destitute in this life as it is. Anybody ever had an inner dialogue like that before? So there's this fundamental belief that things are as they are and they can't change, which is why we end up being so dependent externally to try to get that internal validation. Remember, we talked about we're going to project what we reflect. We start utilizing and leaning on others to try to make us feel whole and complete inside, because we have this fundamental belief that we are as we are, we're fixed and nothing else is going to change. That the circumstances are set, the die has been cast, so to speak, the cards have been dealt, and I don't really know how many more analogies or mixed metaphors, is it called a mixed metaphor, that I can pull out there to really illustrate that. And the key point is that we believe that we can't change. And so when there's this belief that we can't change, it becomes completely disempowering, because if we're at a place in our life where we don't feel like we want to be and we want more, but we think that we can't change, it will leave us in a constant state of struggling to have some sort of self-love. Any of you who did the exercises yesterday that we talked about, If you really did them and you did them with an open heart, you would have likely noticed a significant shift in how you felt. If you resisted doing them, or you did them, but you didn't really fully commit to doing, you kind of did it kind of haphazardly like this. If you rewind the tape in your mind back to yesterday, you might find yourself just the moment before you're trying to decide to do it or not to do it. You might find yourself saying something to yourself like, well, what's the point of doing this? I don't really think I can change. We can, in fact, change, but recognize first and foremost that one of the big things that keeps us from really embracing and experiencing a deep level of self-love is our thought or our belief that we can't change, that we're fixed as we are. All right, so that's number one. Number two, there's an emotional payoff. There's an emotional payoff in staying as we are, having things are the way we are. So easy example with this. You go onto Facebook, and you can all do this if you want to do a real fun psychology, sociology experiment. Hop onto Facebook and put a post up and put something simple. Put something simple like, I'm happy today, or today's been a good day. And you'll get a decent amount of response. Maybe you get a few likes, a few comments and whatnot. But then go onto Facebook and put something up like, today's been a shit day, or today's been a crap day. And watch how the responses go up. Oftentimes we'll get more of a response for those emotional jolts, those things that are those experiences that have a little bit more emotional energy beyond it. See, for the majority of us, the overwhelming majority of us, our lives are pretty darn good. Even if we don't have, and if we're not achieving everything we want, our overall day-to-day quality of life is pretty fantastic. Our basic needs are met. We have a roof over our head. We have clean water, fresh food. We have the lights are on. We have internet access so we can communicate. We can do virtually anything we want, and we have access to so much information. So at the core, we can see, we can hear. We have so many gifts that we may take for granted all the time. But what will often happen is because our baseline is really so good, we look for those emotional jolts, those kind of blips in the proverbial emotional radar that send us that trigger something more inside of us, right? It stimulates something different. And it's often the stuff that might be considered more down, more negative. And we start to use that as a way to meet our needs, right? If we don't feel whole and complete, if we don't feel a tremendous amount of self-love for ourselves, we start to look for external validation from others, right? And one of the fastest and easiest ways to get it is if we put something on and say, gosh, the day was awful. And we have a whole bunch of people reaching out to us saying, what's going on? Are you okay? Is everything nice? Boy, it feels good to have that kind of interaction, right? That kind of engagement, that kind of human connection. And then what happens if the next day we go up and post, well, today's been good. And we get half of that. Maybe we get a fraction of that. Doesn't feel quite as good, does it? Where did all of our people go? Where did all the people who seem to care about us so much the day before? So then Friday or Saturday rolls around, whatever it is, and we throw something up that says, this day's been kind of rough. And then all of a sudden the engagement's back. And we start to get a payoff from it, right? We start to use these methodologies unconsciously as vehicles to meet our needs. We want to feel connected. We want to feel loved. And if we don't have that sense of self-love, we start to lean so much more heavily on the external, and we look for ways to try to get these emotional payoffs so that we can feel better in the moment. Does this make sense? The third part about this is, and I want you to understand, I'm going to say this from the most loving place, but it's a soft challenge. And that soft challenge is that we, in those moments of decision, those crucial moments of decision, when it's a time for us to focus on our own inner work and our own inner journeys, and something else, we will often care more about the opinions of others than we will about the opinion of ourselves. We look for that instant, short-term, internal validation from an external source. There was a quote that I heard the other day, and it was so beautifully brilliant, and I'm trying very hard to remember it right now, but it went something to the effect of this. We spend the majority of our time trying to be noticed by others. And in doing so, we sacrifice the ability to be remembered by many. It's something like that. It's basically saying that so much of the time in our head, we have so much of our time is spent in here trying to get appreciated or trying to get validated from others, that we forget to do our own inner work or to create our own great life that would be our legacy, that would be celebrated by others. See, we try to get this external appreciation. And if we really wanted the external appreciation, we would do the internal work that would allow us to bring forth our greatest self and that we could present it externally to the world. And then we wouldn't need to rely on the "Are you okay?" post to feel okay. Instead, we could just share our message, share our gift. We could be that beacon for others to follow. And so there's this time that in the moment of decision, when we have to decide to do our own inner work, our own inner journey, we may fear that in doing so, it shuts off or it cuts off the connection with other people or what they might think of us if we do that. Is this person going to be crazy? Are they drinking what do they call it? The Kool-Aid or the woo-woo juice? Actually, I don't even know if there is a woo-woo juice, but if there isn't, there should be a woo-woo juice. Are they drinking the woo-woo juice? Maybe the woo-woo juice could be the 2019's version of Kool-Aid. Are they drinking the woo-woo juice? And if we are drinking that woo-woo juice, is that going to make us, different? We're going too far down the rabbit hole and we're not relatable. Are they going to think I'm nuts? Are they going to think I'm crazy? I mean, how many of us have started our own journeys, right? And we've had friends, family members going to us, what the hell are you doing that for? Why are you doing that? What, you're going to this workshop, you're going to listen to this program, you're reading that book. Why? Why would you do that when season 27 of Survivor's on and you can watch that instead? Right, so we make the decisions based off of others first and making sure that we can be okay with them, even though they're probably not even thinking of us as much as we think they're thinking about us. But in doing so, we sacrifice ourselves and our own quality of life and our own potential for self-love. Number 4. I wrote this down. I'm trying to read what the hell I wrote. Oh. This is what happens when you have handwriting that's about the level of a kindergartner who's trying really hard to write. Level 4 is they use their story as a way to meet their needs. One of the reasons that keeps people from having a deep sense of self-love is their story about why they don't have a sense of self-love. Their story about why things are the way they are. And that becomes their reason, their excuse, their dialogue about why they don't have what they really want. You see, once upon a time, my story used to be, which I've shared with many of you before, my story used to be that I would wake up and look in the mirror and spend time in front of the mirror every day and tell myself how I was worthless, how I was a waste of space, how I was my parents' punishment, that I was God's punishment to my parents for whatever they must have done in a past life or whatever it was, that I was this waste of space, that I was a mistake, that I was only going to be a source of pain for so many other people. And it was a wonder why I didn't feel any self-love, right? I didn't feel self-love because I constantly had this story about why I couldn't be loved. I constantly had this story about why I wasn't enough. And so in so doing, what did it do? It meets my needs in a weird, screwy way at a really high level, right? Because when I tell the story of me not being enough, I have certainty in who I am. There's zero risk at all at that point, right? Because as long as I know who I am in that story, I don't have to risk anyone seeing me for any different. I don't have to open myself up and risk myself really being loved. I don't have to open up and risk myself of really being cared for, or really being understood, or really being connected with. I can just stay in my story. And once we stay locked away and trapped in our stories, that becomes the narrative of our life. See, in our stories, there's often these little appendixes that we have, right? It's kind of like when you open up a book and you skip through the intro and you skip through the epilogue or the prologue or whatever it is, because you just want to get to the meat and potatoes. But oftentimes, those are the things that really lead to understanding why the author wrote what they wrote, why they're telling the stories that they're telling. In my epilogue, there was this story that I really wanted the things to different. I desperately wanted to feel loved and connected to others. And I desperately wanted to feel loved and connected to myself. But I couldn't because I had this overarching story that would inhibit and keep me from that. That would rob me and hold me back and keep me trapped and stuck in as I was. Is this making sense to all of you? So it's a story that we tell ourselves. We start to use it. We start to create it. We start to structure it as a way to meet our needs. And when our story starts to become one of a lack of self-love as a way to meet our needs, we start to lose our incentive or our resourcefulness to change. Make sense? And the last one, number 5, for the 5 dirty secrets that help keep people from having a deep sense of level of self-love. And then once we do this, we'll open up for questions. So I encourage you to start typing up questions and comments. There's an unwillingness or a fear even, or maybe both, to be vulnerable. There's an unwillingness or a fear to be vulnerable. We learn how to build walls to try to protect us from other people, to try to protect us from other things, other stories. We do build walls to keep our heart and keep ourselves protected from the external world, closing our heart off to others. But here's the challenge when you build a wall. You keep others out, and so maybe you're safe, but the other side of that is what happens is you keep yourself trapped and locked away inside. See, vulnerability would be to allow yourself to tear down that wall. Allow there to be a hole or space or maybe even a drawbridge that you could lower. And you could come and step forth onto and allow yourself to be presented to others as you really are. Not as the way that you think you should be for somebody else, but who you truly are. Your authentic self, the core of yourself, with all your flaws, all your great things, all the beauties, all the things that you'd wish you could work on and wish you could change. And just be you. And be okay with that. But to be okay with that, we have to be vulnerable enough to tear down the walls that we think protect us, but really all they do is they shelter us. The walls that we think that are going to protect us and keep us safe, but really all they do is they hurt us more long term, because everything we want and everything we desire in our deepest parts of our heart and soul to experience and to really experience life fully lies on the other side of that wall. But we can't get past it because we're not willing to be vulnerable enough to get past it. Because what happens if we're vulnerable, right? What happens if Jesse or Kat or Paul or Linda or whoever see us as we really are? What would they think of me? See, here's where vulnerability becomes tricky. Because to be vulnerable, to really allow yourself to love yourself, we risk having those two greatest fears that all of us share being confirmed and becoming a truth. The fear of not being enough and the fear of not being lovable. So we learn to form our relationships. We learn to interact with people not as we truly are, but as we think we should, as we think we should be, as we think we're expected to be. Because, dear God, what would have happened if they really knew who you were? And if they really knew who you really were and they really saw you for who you are, would that scare them away? Would they run away? Would they slam the door in your face and lock the door and change the locks? And if they did that, then in a weird, screwy way, the circle becomes complete. The thing that we've been running for our whole lives, the thing we've always been seeking, the evidence to support that we are enough, that we are lovable, or that, I should say that we aren't, gets thrusted right back in our face. And so to keep ourselves from it, to prevent it from us, we create this wall. And we lock away and hide of it. We lock away behind it our hopes, our dreams, our willingness to be vulnerable. And the only part we allow to go out and play and allow to emerge into the world is the part of us that we think we should be. But it's not really us, is it? Because what we reflect, we project. And if we reflect in the mirror of life something or someone that we see as not being enough and not lovable, that's what we're going to carry with us and project out onto the world. So these are the 5 dirty secrets that keep people from having a deep level of self-love. The belief that they can't change. There's the emotional payoff. They care more about what others think rather than what they think or what they feel or they know in their heart. They use their story as a way to meet their needs. And lastly, but not least, they're unwilling to be vulnerable. Unwilling to be vulnerable. So that's what I have for you all today. Any questions at all about this? Questions, comments? Has this been helpful? And we have 10, 15 minutes, so I can answer any and all questions you have on this. Questions. Walls and fortresses. Being vulnerable has been my greatest fear, so others do see me how I really am, because if they really see me, they won't like or love me. Yeah, I think, Linda, that you just articulated what so many of us feel. And that's what ultimately will fuel this fear of being vulnerable and will help us reinforce and build the walls around us. When facing walls stronger than Fort Knox, what to do when they aren't your walls, but the walls that have been built by someone over time. It sucks big time to be helpless, to help someone else tear down any of their walls they built, and they're impacting your own life. So we're not. Here's what I would suggest for any of you who are trying to tear down the other walls of other people. We are not commissioned as wall tear downers. We do have the ability to tear down our own, but not someone else's. And what I would encourage you all to do is focus on tearing your wall down enough and loving yourself enough to the greatest and most powerful place possible that you don't feel that it's your responsibility or there's a need for you to tear someone else's wall down. Instead, you can focus on finding a place that you can love the person behind the wall for where they are in their journey. Because otherwise, what's happening is what you're essentially saying to them, right, is that it's my job to tear down this wall or to help you tear down this wall. And if you won't let me, then I'm a failure and you're a failure too. Focus on your own wall and then really loving yourself to your fullest. And then you can be a support person, which is a much more powerful position to be, as opposed to being a person who's trying to be on the outside, forcing somebody on the inside who's not ready and willing to change. I've knocked down so many brick walls since I started working with you, Jesse. I could build a shelter. Or Violet, or you could use them like you have and build a business, build a different lifestyle, build a different set of beliefs, and build a different mindset. I think that's you utilize them in a much more effective way. I should probably not have come online for this. I don't have anything positive to add at the moment. This isn't about being positive or negative, Kat. This is just having a discussion right now. Enough is such a powerful word. Yeah, I totally agree. It is such a powerful word. Oh, I hope you're okay, Deborah. Yeah, breathe for a second and make the right choice. Absolutely, Paul. We don't have to give the keys to others to drive the car of our life unless we decide to give the keys to others to let them operate the car of our life. If you just take that second to breathe and really assess how you're feeling in the moment, how you want to respond, it's a game changer. I love me so much. I can love my hubby even if he never tears down his walls, even if he never heals his trauma. I love him where he is. That's awesome, Angie. Really, really awesome. True that. Hey, Annie, good to see you on here. Oh, thank you. You're amazing too. What questions do you all have? Anybody have any questions?